Hey Nick, can you hear us?
Yep. Hi, Brad.
Great. Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. I know we're supposed to have, I believe Lynn is supposed to be available, and Jay said he was going to try and log on virtually by his Zoom. I think Brendan's supposed to be. Oh, Joel's here.
More coming to.
No, Dan's not. It's covered. Hey Lynn.
Never know which room we're in.
It's. Wish we had more than one conference room. It's or less committees. I thought Brendan.
Oh, he's
Oh,
in
there
there.
you go.
Because you said that.
Yeah. All right.
Make it home.
Besides Jay potentially being able to log in virtually, I think this is going to be for tonight. Does anybody want?
Sure.
Are you recording?
It is recorded.
Okay, it is recording. Okay, so officially calling the meeting of the facilities committee to order. November 19th, 2025 at 6:02. Roll, did you note the roll?
Yep.
All right, any appearances? Doesn't look like anyone saw that. So starting off with agenda 5A, lower level HVAC for the library.
How's it going?
The design
Mm-hmm.
is done. So the 90% plans I sent in the first email.
Mm-hmm.
They were too big to send everything all in one. All the previous comments have been incorporated. There were no glaring issues when I reviewed it earlier, but I was hoping that Brendan could take a good look at it too.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't been able to review it as in-depth as I'd like. Is there an opportunity for me just to email you any concerns I
Yep.
would have?
Yep, that's absolutely fine. And in fact, I prefer that because then I can come back to it, or even better, really simply just push it along to our engineers. So here, I'm
Okay.
gonna share screen right now. Right.
I have a long rambling list right now of just items that have kind of come up when reviewing it and haven't had a chance to confirm. I don't want to just spam them with 20 things that, yep, it's covered. So,
That's fine. I probably will be able to answer like, a majority of the questions anyway. Or give feedback on them, and then anything that I can't answer, I can I can forward on to them, so I can filter it, so to speak.
sure.
So 90% plan review, just as an it's general summary. Lower level library HVAC system, as it is getting completely replaced outside of majority of the ductwork. So a lot of the ductwork is going to stay in place, but uh, the two new boilers, a redundant system, uh, two separate pumping systems, two air handlers, because we have to fit the air handlers on the ductwork that exists there now, and it comes through the slab and the floor. So we have to set the air handlers back on top of where those locations are. So that kind of is our limiting factor in the room. Um, all new electrical, what do they call it? Shutoffs, or starters. Um, new sensors in the vents and the ducts for temp sensing, air pressure. Carbon monoxide, dioxide, or fire suppression system, or not suppression, detection systems. And then a whole new fresh air intake system. And that fresh air intake system will require us to modify the forum room in the library. So if you've ever been in there, this is the forum room. It has a stage, right? And these are elevated. This is elevated seating up here. And there's a drop ceiling in here, and we will have to knock out the drop ceiling, install a new, I believe this is 48 by 24 inch fresh air intake vent, ductwork, that will be enclosed with a new drop ceiling around it. And then that goes to a vent out here, just outside, which is actually kind of like a little makeshift closet area. It's cold storage.
Okay.
It's just storage. So that's where it'll go. I think this has a wall, but I don't think this is fully enclosed. I think that it's open on the top part of it. I have to review that again. A split set of units for the air conditioners. So instead of one air conditioner as it is now serving two air handlers, they'll have their own separate ACCUs. So each air handler will have its own dedicated air conditioner. Which is one of the major issues we have in the lower level right now. We can't dehumidify very low, and we can't adequately cool the spaces. It just stays basementy, you know, and so it's very it's very hit and miss, because it totally depends on the conditions outside during the day, that day, and then how many people are in those spaces downstairs. And in the lower level library, if you're not familiar with it, they're programmed spaces. They're open to the public, but the public has to reserve the rooms. And so they're either empty, or they're partially taken up, or there's like, 45 people in the room. And that can drastically change the environment in those spaces, especially with the doors closed. And so what we're gonna plan on doing with this design is put occupancy sensors in the rooms so that it can tell the air handler
What to
that
do.
we are occupied at this point in time. So as temps and humidity go up, it can fluctuate what it's doing in the room. So it can cool it more, or try and dehumidify. We'll have to be careful with that, because, and I'm sure Brendan knows this, but I think they're called enthalpy controls, can get kind of hit, it can be kind of touchy. Where enthalpy is like the combination of relative humidity and temperature. It's basically how your body feels, of the comfort level in the room. And if you try and dehumidify, you could accidentally overheat the space or overcool the space. And so we're gonna have to figure out a way to kind of adjust that as we go. Best practices. So that's where we're heading with that in terms of the controls portion.
Are you gonna be able to control it remotely? You said that.
Yeah. Everything is still,
Okay, good.
it is controlled remotely, but we can't communicate currently with the controllers down there.
Right,
Because they're so antiquated and old
but
that,
now it will be able.
yeah, oh yeah, everything will be brand new. The whole control system gets completely torn out and redone. There's a lot going on with this project. I'm just gonna try and hit the high points. So there is. We are also going to be replacing, we're gonna be putting in, instead of, there's heating coils downstairs. And basically that's like downstream on the ductwork, far from the air handler. in a dedicated space, there will be this little hot water tube in the ductwork. And the hot air or the air will blow over the hot water tube, and it'll kind of reheat the air because the air will cool slightly as it goes through the ductwork. And that just helps as like an additive, an extra boost of conditioning for the space. We're going to replace those with VAV units because they're more efficient and you can dehumidify with those. And most of the piping for the water can stay in place, and that's all pumped off the boiler plant. So really, we'll just be able to leave most of the copper in the ceiling, replace the pump that pumps the water, and then replace the heating coil with a VAV unit. So that's a portion of the project. This is a close-up view of the boiler room. Here's the main entrance here. There's a hot water heater here currently. It's a really tight space. You can kind of tell from this. The air handler is right here. We're gonna have to take this hot water heater out of this space, put it in the service maintenance closet over here. And then pipe it through the wall back to its original plumbing on this side. There is a combustion air intake that goes through the ceiling out to the front of the building. If you've ever seen, there's a couple fins on the front of the building right here. That's part of this air intake system. This is currently not ducted into the system. It just goes through a hole in the ceiling. That's a rough cut piece of concrete that they basically jackhammered out of the ceiling. And so technically it's exposed to the outside directly, which is not good, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. So that's going to actually get hard ducted in. I wish I had some photos of the existing room. I do have some, but they're in my email somewhere, stashed away. But it's a mess in there right now. So the existing ductwork that does come in that we're going to be attaching to, like I said, is in the floor. That's kind of two of our limiting points. The other two go through the wall here, which we're expanding basically. We're just making it bigger, and then this is our fresh air intake, outdoor air, OA right there. And then the other is right here that comes through the wall here. All the exhausts go up through the rooftop. And this is the original part of the building, so you know that this has been added on to, right? So this is that as you enter into from Schluter Road into the main vestibule, that's the main part of the building. And the stacks all kind of come up over where the bathrooms are, if you've ever been in the library. So yeah, everything, we're kind of reusing all of the protrusions that come out of the room. And basically everything that's in the room other than those things, and a couple of electrical panels that we don't want to touch, because if we touch them, they're not to code, we'll have to replace them. And they are massive electrical panels and transmission transformers. So that's kind of that. This is basically the schematic for all the main units, then everything downstream. Here's for the VAV boxes. This is kind of what it's going to look like and all set now. So the two ACCUs at grade on a concrete pad. These are staged cooling, which means that if we don't need full cooling, we can turn on one stage. If we need full cooling or dehumidification, we can turn on the other stage. And now we can do it separately for each air handler as they serve the various different rooms in the lower level. So like the forum room might have 50 people in it, super humid, lots of body heat. And the meeting room might be empty. Well, we don't need to overcool the meeting room just because the forum room has a bunch of people in it. So now we're gonna be able to separate those air handlers and cool the spaces and dehumidify the spaces that we need to. Or vice versa, heat them up. Which you'll be able to we'll notice the difference pretty drastically down here. This is all the downstream piping. For the VAVs. So there'll be 2 VAVs in the community room. There'll be 1 in the forum room. And then now we'll actually be able to condition this kind of this open lobby area. Currently, there are no temperature setting set points in here. We have no control over the temperature of this main space. We have no thermostats, nothing that tells us what the temp is. So yeah, that'll be conditioned now. And then we've been having mold and air circulation problems in this back corner of the. This is the break room right here. This is kind of a break room / storage area for extra crap that the library doesn't really use. There is a downspout up here at grade. So this is all below grade right here. And it pours out kind of like right here, but there's a little bit of a swale. And I think what's happening is that it's kind of hitting this retaining wall that's right here outside and going back down in towards the basement. There's some cracking in the foundation walls down here. In the brick and mortar that's on the interior that we're pretty sure goes through the foundation. This is so old, they did not waterproof this, and I am 100% sure that there is no drain tile in any of this. So one thing we're going to try and do is put an extra vent in here to get more airflow in this space and potentially even just tear this wall down so that this gets a lot better airflow. And then we're going to put I think they call it a door sweep, but we're going to undercut the door so that air can exchange between the 2 spaces, because this door stays closed like basically all day, every day. And that's another issue. The air just cannot escape this space. So humidity builds up and then it sticks to the wall and then we get mold.
So is this gonna solve the problem of the doors either being sucked closed or
Yes.
open?
Yes, they will be adjusting for the amount of air that is being pulled out of the upper level.
Mhm.
One of the things we found during design in our investigations is that the air handler fan motors and the airflow being pushed into the lower level is not adequate. And so what's happening is basically we're getting a too low of pressure in the lower level, which is causing the upper level to push the air down the stairwell. And when they built that gigantic stairwell, which was after the addition, they didn't account for any of that within the HVAC system. So it's really this gigantic sink of air that comes down into the lower level and it pushes all the doors open. This is just an elevation view of the boiler system. So Brendan, this is one of the more interesting portions. The boilers are not tied to one another, but they are stacked. So these are stacking units. What I was told is that this is on a frame and you would be able to maintain and or replace either or without impacting the operation of the other. So if one goes down, you should be able to pull out and or maintain this or repair it without having to pull this one off of it, and then you're down both boilers at the same time.
Yeah, I've installed those before. I've never stacked them, but I don't see why you couldn't. I don't think any maintenance is from the top, so
Yeah, most would be from the back and the front, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that front panel comes off.
that's typically where the heat exchanger would be. Right in the front,
Yep.
okay. Um. We are putting a treatment system in for the boiler loop. The water here is extremely hard and partially acidic, and or becomes acidic because it has iron in it. And it will eat rubber gaskets away over time. And one of the problems with new pumps is that they're all rubber gasketed, and it's cheap. Everything's made cheaper, and they dissolve. And then we have leaks, and yeah, it's a pain in the butt. We have, and there's other things too. We've gone through heat exchangers on our other boilers because it just eats through the aluminum. Yeah, and so from moving forward, when we redo any kind of boiler systems or otherwise, we'll be putting in boiler loop treatment. These are all closed loops, so it's the same water recirculating over and over and over again. And when we do have loss of water, like we get a leak or sometimes there can be evaporation, not too much, but we'll have to push fresh water in, but it'll also push through the treatment. And the treatment is it's like a slow drip system, isn't it, Brendan? Typically? Or you do it manually?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it. I didn't get too far into the chem treatment spec. A lot of these types of systems, they'll test it periodically and then add chemicals as needed.
Right. But we'll at least have the ability to do that now, whereas we don't currently.
Yeah, I think I saw a pot feeder somewhere in there. So
Yeah.
and these are stainless steel heat exchangers on the boilers.
Our new temp control panel, so right now it's back here. But with the boilers being, right now the boiler is this way. Now we're turning it 90 degrees, so all the piping is going back towards the wall here with the exhaust and whatnot. So everything that's back on this wall is getting replaced or taken off and demoed. And so now the new temperature control panel will be right here, which is great because most of the electrical equipment is over here. And so everything's kind of on one wall, organized all in the same location. In terms of servicing and maintenance, that makes it a lot cleaner and easier. I just noticed something. They have the door swinging one way in this drawing. That's the difference. All right, so let's see. These are the VAVs, I believe. Yep. Here's all the electrical, all on one wall. And these are just spec and schedules and whatnot, so. That's pretty much it for that project. But if anybody notices anything. Feel free to email me or otherwise, I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments right now at this point. This isn't labeled for action, it's just for discussion purposes at this point. The committee doesn't approve plans necessarily. We'll review bids and budgets and we'll discuss plan sets. We don't necessarily approve them. We can recommend that they be accepted by other committees and commissions, but the library board is not gonna look at this and know what to do with it, really. I mean, that's not their purview necessarily, so. So yeah, Brendan, if you got like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours or something like that, spend reviewing it.
I took probably a good half an hour today and just kind of made a list of, hey, did you think of this kind of items?
Okay.
Just typical stuff that I've been tripped up on before on design. So
That's perfect. That's exactly what we need.
yeah, I'm usually on the other side, so this is fun.
Well, this is the last one we're gonna do for quite a bit. We'll talk about the 5-year capital improvement plan here in a little bit. This is just a spec manual. This is just bid forms. It's a contract. It's a lot of legal language and stuff like that. Insurance and special provisions and whatnot. I don't think the group necessarily needs to go through this. One thing I would recommend reviewing for this group is the bid forms. The bid ad, make sure that it kind of covers what you would expect to see in a bid ad. I know some of you have probably seen a document somewhat similar to bid ads anyway. They're a lot like proposals, RFPs. That's kind of what this document is for. The qualifications for bidders is something to review. This is still kind of a qualification. Good security, that. Operational basis of it. This would be something to look over as well. Retainage. We always have retainage on public works projects. So that if we get a bad sub or contractor in, we retain a certain amount of every pay request that they send in, so that we don't pay them the full amount. We keep that stored away so that if they don't perform the project to the specifications of the contract, or they run late or way behind on a project without due cause for doing so, then we can keep that money in case we need to go out to bid to get a contractor in to finish the rest of the project up. Also, it holds it over their head like a carrot, basically. Come on, get the project done and you'll get paid, so to speak. But these documents for the group, so you don't have to take any extra time necessarily to look them over too much detail, is these all go to our attorney for review. It is a contract, and every contract over a certain dollar amount, especially public bid projects, they go through the city attorney.
I just briefly looked through it. It's just a singular lump sum. It's price. You don't have any. It didn't look like they at least had any sort of bid items besides like the 2 alternatives, but all I saw was just a base bid and then.
Yeah, base bid and with 2 bid alternatives. We can talk about that. It's a good question, actually. So the base bid is basically the boilers, ductwork, electrical controls, in that the outdoor air intake and the air conditioning units. The bid alternative we put in there because we don't know what kind of bids we're gonna get in on this. We have a very tight budget with this project. Is to install the VAV systems. Now, we put that as a bid alternate because of the fact that we do have the heating coils. They work for the most part. One of them has a bad valve on it, so it leaks. But we don't have to do the VAVs immediately. They are something that definitely should get installed, but we could bid a project in 2027 and put them in if we needed to. Bid alternate 2 is to upgrade controls at City Hall and the community center. This is gonna get removed because we're gonna do this with existing budgets this year and next year. And reason being, because the community center boiler plant controller has failed. And we are now required to go down into the boiler room every single morning and kickstart the boilers manually. Because they shut off by themselves. So. I love the HVAC systems in the.
High quality.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, you're right, so, and then there's the cash allowances. Temporary utilities is effectively temp heat and cooling. That came out of the last meeting, I believe that's actually in the minutes. Oh, you know what? We're gonna have to go back as a point of order.
Oh. sorry.
Alright.
You wanna finish this one?
Yeah, I'll finish
Okay.
this and then we can move on. This is one part that I think that everybody should probably look at, and maybe if you have suggestions, key in on. The time of completion. So there's a balancing act with that in public works projects. You don't wanna make it too open, because then the contractor might come on site, do one thing, leave for a month, come back, do another thing, leave for a month, come back, just draw the whole project out. You can't make it too tight because a lot of contractors will think, well, this isn't buildable in my schedule. So they either overprice the heck out of it. Or they won't even bid, and then you're not gonna get your competitive bidding atmosphere that you like to have. So if anybody has any comments or suggestions on this, like the goal right now is to put like a start date of March, April, which will be tight, because we're gonna bid in January. But approvals will be in February, March. Our pre-construction meeting will be the end of March, early April. And then they'll have to start right away, and so there's lead times on equipment and all kinds of stuff, so. Really, the only thing that would be able to start is demo. And that just means that we're basically without an HVAC system in the lower level. Starting out immediately in April, May. The goal being that we would get it completed. If the library director has his way by like the first week of June. When before school's out. So. It's tight. Another thing that we could do in this, and I've kicked this around with the library director and our engineer, is we require that the air conditioning system of all things is effectively installed first. So by June, we may be able to bring that online and then do the boiler system through the summer months, because it won't really impact the comfort levels in the lower level during the summer. So this might have like another article for time completions, a couple different ones, like 6.02 or 6.01A, 6.01B, something like that in here. So. And that's just, the rest of this is signature pages. And then the only other thing I had to share out of it was the cut sheets that I sent. But these are, manufacturers. Blah, 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 that's what I call it. It's just a lot of detailed drawings and specs. So that's what our new boiler is gonna look like. Very aerodynamic, so when they don't work, you can throw them really far. Hopefully they work. Please, Brendan or anybody, if anybody has any feedback, experience with these brands of products, please let me know. Specifically, the ACCUs, the condensing units. They have them spec'd out for Aeon. We have been having some significant issues with our rooftop units. They're not condensing units, they're rooftop units, and I understand that, but we've had nothing but problems, at least with one of the units up on the library roof. Maybe that one's just a lemon. Some of the other ones have had some quirky things happen, but for a brand new unit, rooftop unit 3 on the roof at the library has had maintenance issues like quarterly every single year since it's been installed. You spend thousands of dollars on that unit. You almost pay for it. A replacement by now. Just today they were out there. The ignition system on the unit wouldn't work anymore. It tried, so we had to replace the entire thing. But I welcome any feedback on any of these products. If anybody has any experience with them, or if you know somebody that might know something about them, feel free to reach out and ask questions. Send me an email with some notes. Preferably not like, yeah, I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy and said, hey, that sucks. So that won't be very helpful for us. But.
How old are those other? Are you having trouble?
2022 we installed them. So they're brand new, yeah. That is it for item 5A.
We go back to item 3 then,
Yeah,
approval of minutes. You have a motion to approve. Minutes from meeting on August 21st.
I can do that.
Second,
I'll second.
any changes or comments on the minutes? All those in favor of approving? Aye.
Aye.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right, then moving on to 5B, staff update.
So I've been working on this historical maintenance summary for about the last month, every chance that I have, like an hour or half an hour. Pulling in all the historical invoice data and checks payable data from our accounting software, which is an absolute super piece of software, but one of the problems I'm having is that each department has, almost every department has a building maintenance and an equipment maintenance account. Some of them have another separate account for service contracts. And so anything that they can contract annually, they'll put in the service contracts account, which is technically maintenance. So then I have to sift through the service contracts to figure out which ones are maintenance items and which ones are cleaning or pest control or something like that. Then I have to go through the equipment one and try and pull out anything that wasn't equipment that accidentally got coded to the equipment account that was a building service maintenance account or maintenance item or repair or whatever. And then I have to go through the building maintenance account and pull out and sort through everything that's in there, which also has some things in there that are maintenance, they're pest control or whatever. So it's like trying to sort through all that stuff is kind of a pain. So I've probably got 75% of it done. The gist of it is that probably about 80%, 75% of maintenance items are HVAC related in the city. Across the board. Doesn't matter which facility it is, it's HVAC related. And then the bulk of the rest of the funds that we spend in the city for facility maintenance are plumbing, electrical, doors and security. And then some roof patching and or sealant replacement, things that leak, basically. So it would, I've been saying this, we've been trying to do this since 2018. This committee has trying to update the HVAC systems in our buildings. And it's been a very, very slow process. We did one small project here to replace the air conditioning unit that feeds Air Handler 2, which is the police department, because that was from the 1980s. That was in 2019. We did a 2020 project. We replaced the large rooftop unit at the library that feeds down, and we replaced all the VAVs that it feeds to, which is basically the rooftop unit that does all of the original portion of the library in the upper level only. And then in 2021, 22, we replaced all the rest of the rooftop units. So then the entire upper level of the library was done. All the controls, all of everything else was done. Since then, we haven't done anything in terms of large capital expenses for HVAC replacements or renovations. And so this next project is the big one, so to speak, until we talk about City Hall. But this will basically, the library will be done. And so then we can kind of write it off the board. Between 2018 and 2026, basically the library's system as a whole is complete. And then from then on, we can just schedule every 5 to 10 years, we're doing controls upgrades, because that's basically the lifespan of not only the equipment that are the controllers, think of just little computers, essentially, processing chips and boards and software. And then move on to the bigger picture, which is what we'll talk about in the end of this section of the agenda, which is the 5-year capital plan, which is more like a 10-year capital plan for facility improvements. There's question marks around what's going to happen with City Hall. And there's question marks around what's going to happen with the community center. So we're kind of in limbo with these facilities. So right now, my goal in terms of maintenance management is to just keep kicking the ball down the road. Like when something breaks, we're going to keep fixing it. There's, we don't have the end zone in sight, so to speak. But I will continue to reiterate with the city council and this body that every year that we don't do the projects that need to be done, we're pushing all of the subsequent projects behind it down the line. And so the rooftop units here are from 1990s. They need to be replaced. They're on the list of priorities. The air handlers here, all hot deck, cold deck, multi-zone air handlers. It's a problem because we don't have broad, big, open, shared use areas in this building. We have individual offices. And hot deck, cold deck systems without VAVs are really inefficient when it comes to giving the correct type of comfort level for individual spaces. They can do big rooms like this, and they can do like the training room in the fire department, which is big open space, and they can do individual spaces that are all kind of like semi-open, like cubicle areas and stuff like that. But when it comes to individual offices, it's a zoo when it comes to that. Especially that I'm not being sexist, but like if you have a string of offices that are all controlled by one thermostat on one zone, and you have like 3 females and 1 male, or vice versa. Most women in our offices over here are colder than the men, and let's say the thermostat is in a zone that runs hot, or an office that runs hot. Well, then all of the rest of the offices are going to be cold on that line because it's not going to be pumping the heat. And so now over here in our wing, I know 3 of the female staff that we have run space heaters all day long. So it's super inefficient the way that we have the system set up in this building. I know dispatch runs space heaters. Most of our dispatchers are female as well as female staff. It's just not, it's not set up in any type of way that would meet modern standards for an HVAC system for a building like this. A building of this use type. Office is staff here 24/7 with the fire and police departments. So that's something to consider. We'll have to consider with the 5-year. And it's tough because now we're competing with large street reconstruction projects, parks projects, new equipment for the fire and public works and parks and police departments. And then the upcoming roof replacement projects at the library. And we have a building envelope inspection capital budget line item for the community center for this coming fiscal cycle. So they'll be looking at the roof condition, exterior, like windows, sealant, doors, soffit, fascia, gutters, all of that stuff. And it wouldn't take a very experienced person to take a look at that building down there and just be like, yeah, okay, I think this is probably gonna have a bad grade, generally speaking. So that's another project that'll be in the queue. So it's just not enough capital money to go around for all these things. And so eventually there will be a tough decision to make about this building and the community center. Do we continue to just kind of put lipstick on these pigs, or do we bite the bullet and we invest like millions of dollars into these buildings? And that's going to be tough to do because you have to look at a facility like this and say, well, if we're going to put millions of dollars into it, I hope that it lasts another 40 years or so. And this building is already 60+ years old. So, I mean, it's not super old, but at the same time, it's not built to modern standards in any kind of a way. So yeah, that's, if we reviewed the 5-year at our last meeting as part of our budget talks and the discussions over the upcoming facility improvement budgets, which you guys recommended for city council approval. One thing on here that I'd like to talk about is our upcoming preventative maintenance RFP. So our current contract for preventative maintenance was a 3-year contract signed in 2024 or 2023. So 2026, it will auto renew with a escalator in there for the cost of inflation and whatnot. We've had a pretty good experience with J.M. Brennan. They've been punctual. They've communicated well with me and our staff. They've had pretty experienced staff. They have had turnover, but this industry, Brendan may be able to speak to it. The industry right now for HVAC and for most trades is chaotic. People are, if they don't like what they're getting, or they get a bad taste in their mouth for the company that they're with, they'll quickly jump ship and move on to another company. There's not a ton of loyalties involved right now in the industry. But the people that they have had out here have been good. So I don't have an opinion either way. If you guys have a recommendation in terms of like companies you've worked for or experiences you've had with, like setting a policy for if a contract is running out, automatically we issue an RFP. Or is it touch and go? Do you just kind of go with how things are going, with the experience you're having with your current provider for service, and just kind of re-up on an annual basis? And then let them know, we'll see how this year goes, and then we'll look at next year, one of those kinds of things.
So I was just trying to look, it looks like it's a 3% increase, is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Which is what it's been each year, but it was contracted that way. Yeah. So they have
So it renews for how long?
for 1 year at a time from now moving forward. So we signed a 3-year contract, and that's every year we'd have to reassess it. So relating to the season now, to issue an RFP, we would have to let them know that we're not going to auto renew 30 days from contract date, which I believe is January 1st or 12/31 this year. So I'd have to let them know by December 1st. And then we'd have to adjust the RFP that we issued in 2023, do some, revisions to it. It would come back through this body for approval. And then we reissue the RFP in January of 2026, which means that we're out of a service contract for 2 months, probably around there. So
And would you get anybody better?
that's the question. That's a good question. I just, we had IKM, Illingworth Kilgist, which is MCOR now. And like all of these great, medium, mid-sized companies, they got bought by the corporate structure, the overlord, and then they became
Lean.
to say the least. And they moved their headquarters then because MCOR is in Milwaukee, and so then all of our service calls are going through Milwaukee. When Kilgist's shop is literally 5 minutes away, and it was super efficient. I could call. They had a technician that lived in Madison, or they lived in McFarland, or they lived in Stoughton, and they were here. 30 minutes, middle of the night. Boiler plant went down. Police and fire complaining there's no heat in the building. Their experience, they know the building, they know exactly where to go to get to the boiler room, they know who to contact. And all that fell apart. So then that's when we reissued the RFP, because we had Kilgist for the entire time I was here. I've been here up until 2023, so that would have been 7-8 years plus. So that's where we're at. Like I said, I don't really have an opinion either way. If you guys have suggestions that you want to give towards whether you believe that it's better to be, issue competitive bids, RFPs for services, or you just keep going with the team that you have until they give you a reason not to, right?
They basically, you pay them a set amount to do certain things to each building. The spring, fall, it looks like, there's kind of a set amount that they're agreeing to, and then any service call, they just bill us. Looks like maybe a 5% discounted rate, but they bill us an hourly rate based on those calls.
Plus materials.
Plus material.
Yep. Anything else though, we could quote it out.
Yeah.
And then if it's at a certain threshold, if it's in a budget line item, it doesn't have to be competitively bid. Then we just have the city administrator sign the quote and order the service. So, and they've been pretty good about, being timely with those repairs and replacements. The one thing we haven't gotten progress on, and I'm not sure it's their fault, is the warranty of the rooftop unit number 3 over at the library. And that is because it was installed by a different contractor. The warranty is with the manufacturer. The manufacturer's rep is Masters. So there's like 3 layers to kind of sift through when it comes to that. I would like to see more progress on that. It would be intolerable to have to replace the same part every single year because of a faulty design by the manufacturer. And it impacts the air conditioning of the largest, southernmost open space with the biggest windows in the library. So in the middle of the summer, it is the hottest spot.
And that's J.M. Brennan.
No, well, Jay and Brennan would have to go through those hoops to try and get this warranty taken care of, and right now.
They didn't install it though.
No, right now the feedback from Aon, who's the manufacturer, is well, we're waiting to get more feedback and see if this is a common problem, and then we'll issue the warranty.
So they haven't covered any of the.
No.
Parts.
Because it's not like a vehicle recall where it's life safety issues. And so these manufacturers will sit on it and hope you go away.
And it probably happened outside of like whatever bumper to bumper, or whatever.
A 1-year warranty.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was outside of that.
When you
1 year is 3 days or something.
Always have
So 1 year and about 2.5 weeks.
It really was only a 1-year warranty.
That's what we get. That's the standard in the industry. My stove just blew up. It's 2 years old. 1-year warranty. Same thing.
But that's just for like commercial units? Because like my furnace had like a 7-year warranty.
Some manufacturers warranty certain parts of the unit, but yeah, the manufacturer's warranty on this particular part of that unit was 1 year.
Jeez. And that's the company that is the basis of design for the one that's at 90%. So is that something we want to keep going with?
That is, yes, so Aon is the manufacturer of the units that are spec'd in the project manual, yep. So one thing that I'm going to ask them to do is take this similar spec sheets like Aon has for their particular units and say, either Aon or as approved by city engineer. And then we can take alternatives as part of the bid. Now they would be required to submit a request for an alternative, have it approved by the engineer, and then amendment to the bid be issued to all prospective bidders. That way everybody can get everybody can give a price on the same equipment. So if one of them comes in and says, we'd like to spec Carrier, it's the same unit. Same specs, basically, it's just who we rep with. Because a lot of these companies will just rep with like 2 parties to supply them. And then the engineer will be able to review it and say, all alternatives have to be submitted by this date to be able to issue an amendment with enough time for everybody to get pricing and submit a competitive price. So that's something that we should consider. We'll probably consider for this particular bid.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, do you want to put alternatives in the manual ahead of time? I mean, we do that on a lot of our projects, like for state work that have to be competitively bid. We have to list, if we put a base of design, we have to put at least 2, potential alternatives in there for that reason. Just a thought.
I don't know if we want to get too specific with it, I don't know enough about certain brands to say, yeah, we're gonna stay away from that manufacturer. I'll have to ask our engineer about that. That'd be a good question for them. Like, hey, do you wanna leave this open-ended, or do you wanna say there's, it's either this product, or this product, and that's the only ones we're gonna accept in terms, from certain manufacturers, so to speak.
Mhm.
One of the things that I would like to make sure that given the climate that we're in economically, just globally, is that we're trying to spec manufacturers that produce their products in like Canada, Mexico, or the United States. In terms of replacement parts and components and stuff like that, or if we have to replace an entire unit because it's a lemon and it just doesn't work right, for timing purposes and efficiency, it makes it a heck of a lot easier if they're producing those products somewhat within our region. As soon as you have to start to go overseas, especially with tariffs being what they are and can be, it becomes a pretty big issue. I know that a lot of people are dealing with that with electrical components, right? Which we are going to have to deal with on this project. A lot of electrical components that are just a part of this project are probably gonna have lead times that could range from like 8 to 20 weeks. So that'll be something that will be interesting to see what happens when we get our bids in.
Talking about the preventative maintenance contract, does the library one need to be updated, given that the equipment's going to be changing?
It will need to be, yeah, but, so if we just extend on for a year.
Yeah.
Then we just work with Jay and Brennan, they come in after the project's done. They review the equipment that was installed, they review the parts for that equipment, filter sizes, whatever, all that. And then they give us an updated price for that. They will be getting the bid manual for this project sent directly to them. We'll send it to, we typically send it directly to certain contractors in the area that are reputable. And we've worked with, we have experience with, that we know will give us a responsible price. Because some of these contractors come in, out of Minnesota, Minneapolis, and they'll just either they'll lowball it, just trying to get work and get their name in this area because they're looking to expand, or they'll be like 60% higher than everybody else. And it's taking a bit. But that's a good point. We will have to adjust the contract for the updated equipment. There might be, given the fact that the most of the equipment will be installed sometime next year, and it'll be under a 1-year warranty with the installer, we probably really won't need to adjust any of it until 2027 for that contract.
Yeah, I think the 3%, if you're getting what you think or if you're getting what you're paying for and they're doing okay, that seems reasonable at 3%.
Yeah, like where I work, we only send out a new request for proposals if we're having issues.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not satisfied with service. So.
I'd rather not go through the whole process.
Yeah.
But I can if needed.
We can next year.
You can. And there's no city policy necessarily written in stone for
No.
service contracts, RFPs and whatnot. Yeah, the 5-year capital improvement plan. Oh, the only updates I have on that is that because things like design got taken out of the 2026 budget, like for the rooftop at the library, and placed in the 2027 budget. Then construction gets pushed. So really what happened is most of the budget that was proposed, if anything was in the 2026 budget that couldn't fit, it got moved out to the next year, or even potentially 2 or 3 years down, where the window looked like the total amount of capital requests in that budget cycle was going to be lower. Where they took some lower priority projects and jumped a year or 2 and placed it in those budget cycles so that the budgets are kind of balanced across the year. So you didn't have like 3 million, 8 million, 5 million, 10 million, 2 million. So that's really the only update I have on that at this point. Also, in February, the city council and or just the mayor will be sitting down with department heads to discuss this 5-year capital improvement plan. Not just for everybody, for everything. To kind of stretch that plan out and prioritize projects, and get a better idea of what's the biggest needs, and get an idea of what is feasible and what is the reality of the capital budget situation. Like, can we, like the mayor had the $2.5 million capital budget, it was kind of like the goalpost for this year. Is that doable? Is it legitimately doable? Like, can that be sustained? Or are is it just not feasible to limit the capital side to that certain extent? Or is there like a way that we can kind of slowly escalate but not go over the hill, so to speak, in terms of capital funding, and then begin to prioritize and fit certain portions of projects in? I think I have a feeling, I don't know, but I would assume if I was in her position and that was kind of one of my goals, starting to request that certain projects get chopped like in half, and a portion is done in like sequence and phases. It costs more in the long run, but then on an individual fiscal cycle, it's more less painful, more palatable. It's more work, but also it's
You can sell
so we'll see. Not sure where that's gonna end up at this point.
Do you think this library project will have some energy savings?
It's hard to tell with HVAC projects. Brendan and I have talked about that in the past meetings, and our engineers have come in a past meeting and talked about it. HVAC is not like out there meant to save a ton of money. The whole goal is comfort and suitability within the space.
I think the new
Equipment-
units would be efficient.
They are, but like I've said this in the past, this group, you can only get to so much efficiency,
Right.
right? And unless whole new concepts for serving a facility with heat and cooling and whatever, dehumidification, until they come up with some like just
Amazing stuff.
amazing technology. And I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where we're like, yeah, we're going to save 50%. It's like, no, you have to re-insulate and
Yes,
seal the building to cut those energy costs. That is how you save on energy costs.
oh, those doors all blowing open, that might help.
Right in the middle of the summer too. Usually when it's happening.
Yep.
So yeah, that's really it. I mean, this building, I've been above this ceiling, God knows how many times. There's not really any insulation in there. These are brick and mortar walls. I don't know how much insulation is in there.
Huh.
They're from this is from the 1990s, but the original side over here, which faces west, is from the 1960s. So these buildings are very difficult to deal with. To try and insulate and seal this building up would be a pretty heck of a task, and I'm not sure there's a lot of contractors out there that would be able to do it well. You might get lots of bids, but will they do it properly? That is the question.
Energy was cheap in the 60s, so
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's how the designs were. Cause it was cheap.
It's still a lot cheaper if you're trying to retrofit it, I mean, one money you put in, trying to insulate something.
Yeah.
Never gonna get back in energy in this,
It's really getting to the point where you have to cut your buses and have a new building. Cause we just can't do it.
I have been half jokingly, telling certain staff and or even the mayor like that, you build a brand new building now, or we can add on an addition now, but maybe we should wait until the new building codes have been enacted in the state of Wisconsin. Seeing as we're one of 5 states that have codes from the 1980s that are still our code or building code in terms of energy. Yeah, so maybe if that happens, then we say, all right, now we're gonna build a much more expensive building.
Sure.
But it's gonna be way more efficient than what we have here.
Well, your maintenance,
Hopefully it'll go down, yeah.
everything we talk about here is maintenance.
I will be sending out, once I'm done with that maintenance summary, and I think that it'll be interesting for you guys to go through. But I was really hoping to have it on this meeting. But I'll send out the maintenance summaries and with a little bit of a technical memorandum for this group that you can review, and maybe we can bring it back at a future meeting. We discuss things like service contracts, future maintenance or renovations, things like that. I think that it'll also be very telling when it comes to budget season next year, when we show them that we're spending 20 grand on HVAC maintenance on any individual facility per year. Let's say we replace the majority of any of those systems and we cut 10 grand out of our operating budget every single year. For each facility. So it's just a point of discussion. Yeah, you gotta spend a lot of money to get your new stuff, but the goal would be that you spend 50% less on the maintenance of that.
At least.
For at least, the next 10 to 15 years. Although, if we really want to change anything, change the industry so that they stop designing things to fail at a very specific point in time.
Apple model.
It's and the engineers are getting so good at it that it legitimately will fail 7 years. That's when we want it to fail, it'll fail.
Yep.
So it's unbelievable. But that's all I have for this evening, unless anybody has any questions, or comments, suggestions, any items for a future meeting, for agenda topics or anything like that.
Fine. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Alright, 7:15. Sorry I gabbed so much tonight. We don't meet very often.
No,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
And I'll be sending out all that, the summary here in the next couple of weeks, probably next week. So we have some fun stuff to chew on for Thanksgiving break.
Won't have any room.
Yeah. See you guys.
Yeah.